number 5 on offense. What have you seen from him, and what dynamic does he bring to defending him?
He is impressive. He is fun to watch, and I mean, I've been doing this a long time. You see players like that make great plays. They make everybody better. When he has a good day, everybody has a good day. When the offense is moving the ball the way they do, good things happen. I'd love to tell you we can win every game without scoring points, but you need to have a great offense, and that's what he brings. They are fun to watch, the whole receiving group, and he's impressive.
Bryan, what's been your biggest adjustment you've had to make?
Having a lot of people. More people to work with every day, more people that are looking for things to do. We used to coming from smaller schools where we'd have 3, 4 people on our side of the ball and having to do a lot of stuff ourselves, whether it was setting up the field, whether it was getting everything ready for scout cards. The amount of help that we have, it's impressive for us, but that's probably been the biggest thing for me to adjust to.
Throughout the spring, and you've dealt with this at every level, how do you deal with the give and take? I mean, there's an offense and a defense, and they're on the same team. Some days are going to be good, some days aren't going to be so good.
The way I've always looked at that is I want to win games, period. I'm the first one celebrating if a receiver makes a great catch. I'm the first one telling the running back he makes a good run. I'm the first one celebrating if we get an interception, because at the end of the day, it's about Oklahoma State winning football games. And I've been at some places where we've had very competitive springs, and you end up having the best football teams you ever had. If one side of the ball dominates, it's usually a bad omen for what the season's going to be. And see, that's the offensive guy, so I'll talk to them too, right?
That feels good, though. I mean, they already like you a lot.
Yeah, they're good kids. It's easy to have. It's fun to be around good kids.
I know you don't want to give away any scheme or anything, but you had reason to celebrate down here a little earlier. That's
one of the most impressive football plays I have ever seen, period. If you guys were here and you saw it, oh my God.
We weren't here, so tell us.
We had a blitzer coming off the edge, and he jumped and intercepted the pass. That was impressive. That was very impressive.
Coach, what's it been like working with Gundy this spring?
Awesome. Everything you see about him, everything you read about him, every single thing I've ever been told about him is true. He's a good man. He's a hard worker. He's very intelligent. He holds people accountable. He has expectations. He holds you to those expectations. And he's a family man. My family's been in the office. If there's something to do with being at home, I haven't missed church with my family on Sundays. That's been fun. So most of the time you get some coaches that aren't like that. They want you working a lot. So if it ain't to do with family, he's there and lets you do it. So it's been unbelievable.
Football's football, but talk about the athleticism. You've got some guys that, and I know you've been some good places. Youngstown had good athletes, and from what I can see, Gannon had some good athletes, but there's probably a few more here.
Yeah, they are. The funny thing about that is there's great athletes on our side of the ball, but there's great athletes on the other side of the ball. So it's all relative, which is one thing I've really noticed. And I've told this to a few people. I think the biggest thing I've noticed here is there's nobody on this football team that shouldn't be here because they're too good. This is the highest level of college football. This is one of the premier, best programs in the country. Every single player is good enough to be here and shows that when they play every day. Whereas sometimes when you're at a smaller school, you have 1 or 2 guys that really stand out because they shouldn't be here for whatever reason. And they stand out. So the one thing about here is everybody's good, everybody belongs here, and that speed, it's all relative.
Coach Gundy talked about when he originally thought it was going to be a couple-hour conversation with you, and you guys talked for 6.5 hours. What do you remember from that day?
It was a blur. I left Cleveland, Ohio at 6 a.m. I left Erie, Pennsylvania at 4 a.m. to drive to Cleveland to catch my flight, flew to Oklahoma City, and I didn't get back to my home in Erie till 3 a.m. that day. So it was a blur. It was a lot of fun. It was 6 hours of talking football. I think I had 1 cup of water. That was it. Just kept going. It was a lot of fun.
Take us back a step farther. When did Coach Gundy actually reach out to you, and when did you sort of start to realize how serious this was?
He reached out to me on a Wednesday. It was before our first official visit. I can't remember the exact date. It was in January. It was in the afternoon. We were actually in a recruiting meeting talking about our visit, and I got a phone call from a Stillwater, Oklahoma number, and decided to answer it. Most of the time it's telemarketers. Probably glad I answered that call. We talked for about 20 minutes. He was interested in what we were doing, and move forward. About 2 days later, he invited me out to come meet with him in Oklahoma City, and took about 10 days after that. 10 days after that initial phone call.
How did you tell your family? What was that reaction like?
My wife was pretty happy. It was almost a surreal experience of telling her, I'm going out here to talk football. I'll be back, and it's like, hey, I'll see. I left Sunday morning, so I'll see you when I get home. And she was there when Coach Gundy called and offered me the job. And our oldest boy was asleep, but our youngest one was still awake, and had to wait till the next day to really tell everyone so it become official. But a lot of excitement, a lot of. She's from Southeast Kansas, so she was excited to get home. So my mother-in-law was pretty happy that I brought the grandbabies back home, and my mom kind of wanted to fight me a little bit for taking them farther away.
Coach, how's the install been putting in this new defense?
Fun, fast, impressive with how smart the players are picking it up. They've picked up everything as well as anybody I've ever been around. They play really fast. They believe in what we're doing. The buy-in's been unbelievable from the coaches and from the players. And you see the positive results, and kids just want to know you care about them and that you have their best interests at heart. So when they start seeing success, it's easy to buy in.
In that 3-3-5, have you ever had the opportunity to work with somebody like Kendall Daniels?
No.
What is that about?
He's 6'4", 220 pounds, and runs really fast and hits really hard. And he's incredibly smart, and he's a great kid, and he's coachable. Has a good house, got a good mother. There's not a bad thing you can say about the young man.
Along those same lines, nose is very critical in that front, and you got several guys there, but the new one from Utah is pretty impressive.
He is. He knocks the center back a little bit. He's fun to watch. He's not just a big body in the middle that can't move. I mean, he can stick, he can get to the outside, he can take his hands back on a back block, he can control the guard, he can get vertical and get after the quarterback. He's a fun football player to be around. And a fun kid. He's funny. He's a funny guy. Man, you have a conversation with him, he'll get you laughing. He comes in his sandals and button-up shirt when he gets done from class and looks like he's going to the beach. So, good kid.
Was there ever a point during this where you thought, am I getting punked right now? Oklahoma State wants me to, be the defensive coordinator?
No, not when it got to that point. The first initial conversations, my head coach and I at Gannon kind of laughed about it. It's like, this is either something really cool or this is a really elaborate prank. But when my plane ticket actually came through and had my name on it, I was like, well, if it's a prank, that's a pretty expensive one on the people doing it, so at least I'll take a flight.
What have just been your initial impressions of Stillwater and the state as a whole?
Let me think about that. So I've recruited Oklahoma for 8 years when I was at Emporia State. So I have a lot of friends down here, a lot of high school coaches that I'm very close with or still have a relationship with. So my first reaction when I got the job was the positive voices that I heard from them on social media or reaching out to me. And that just reaffirmed everything I've ever thought about the state, is that it's a bunch of good people. It's a big state as far as mileage and distance, but it's also very small, very connected. When you have someone from Lawton that'll go play a football game at Bartlesville and they all know each other. It's not like being from Ohio. I love where I'm from, but I'm from Eastern Ohio. I didn't know anybody from Toledo. That's 4 hours away. But you get a kid from Beggs, he's going to know about a kid from Lawton, and that's a pretty far drive apart. So very friendly, good people. The people that our neighborhood, everyone my wife's worked with, everyone my wife's met has been unbelievable in welcoming us. Our church has been unbelievable. When they say welcome home, they mean it. It's a great place to be. Love raising our kids here, and we're excited to be here.
What were your first few days in Stillwater like? Like, where do you start when you get to a new place? Where do you start?
I didn't leave that building very much. My family didn't get here for about 5 weeks, so I would get to my office probably around 5:30, and then I would FaceTime my wife so I could see my son before he went to daycare, and I would just start working and watching film and doing that, and I'd eat lunch in the cafeteria because Coach Rod was nice enough to hook me up with that until everything got set up. And I'd probably stay there till about 10 o'clock at night and then go home and take a nap in the apartment they had me set up in, and just worked. And unfortunately didn't get around the town as much as I wanted to, but just trying to get caught up and get myself ahead of the game, make sure I was prepared, because I came in and then I think 2 days later the rest of the D staff showed up. So wanted to make sure I was prepared the first day everyone came to town.
You switch your defensive entire defensive scheme in 2017 at Emporia, right? Or after that season?
After 17,
What,
yes.
what led to that decision, and what have you found about your new defense in the past 5 seasons?
The first defense I ran was I was a 4-3 with 4-2-5 people, and we were really good at Emporia State in 15 and 16, and I think we went 22 and 5, and then we came into 17, and we had to replace 9 starters. We replaced them with very talented players, some of which were freshmen or sophomores, and if you guys know about the MIAA, that's an unbelievable Division II football league, and you can't line up and look like everybody else if you don't have as good of players. And we had good players. They were just younger, so eventually bigger, stronger, faster will beat you. So after 2017, we lost. In 2017, we lost 2 games we shouldn't have lost. And it all came down to that. So we said, how can we do something different? How can we stand out? We started studying some odd front stuff, went to that, figured out a way to marry our 4-2-5 personality, 4-2-5 run fits with it. That's where it kind of progressed into what we do now. And what I've learned from it is it allows for players to play with a lot of confidence as long as they know what to do. There's not that perfect check. It doesn't have to be a perfect defense. It doesn't have to be a perfect call. It's not self-correcting, because that would make it seem like it's way too easy. It's not that, but it gives our players a lot of tools to where they're not put in a bad situation.
Who are a few coaches that you've worked under that you've kind of learned from over the years that kind of stand out? I know you were under Solich for a little bit in Ohio.
Yep.
Who are some other guys that you've kind of learned from over the years?
Start from Coach Solich. He was the first head coach I worked with, and learned how to be a professional, learned how to get into coaching, why to get into coaching. Jimmy Burrow was my defensive coordinator, and everything I know defensively I owe to him. Ross Ells was the linebackers coach. Everything I know about how to teach linebackers I owe to him. He's the one that let me sit in the back of the room as a student assistant and take notes, and didn't get annoyed when I'd go in his office and ask him questions as a 19-year-old kid. David Brown was my head coach at Missouri S&T. I learned a phenomenal amount of football from him, from how to run a different defense, because we ran something a little bit out of the ordinary at Missouri S&T. Taught about teaching, taught about how to treat players, taught about how to build a program, because he was a second-year head coach. Garen Higgins shaped who I am as a coach, because I got there at Emporia State when I was 25 or 26. Spent 8 years with him. That's where I became who I am. Taught me how to recruit. Taught me why Oklahoma high school football is so great, because he's from here. He went to Blackwell. His dad's still a high school coach. He's still coaching at Rock Creek, so he's still coaching there, and coach at Shawnee. So I got all my Oklahoma ties and all my friends in Oklahoma because of Coach Higgins, and grew to who I am as a coach because of Coach Higgins. Everybody I worked with at Emporia State on the defensive side of the ball, Mike Laporto and Nathan Lindsay, we built a defense every day together for 8 years. So great friends, great coaches, learned a lot and went through a lot of tough times with them. Eric Rayburn at Gannon taught me to trust in who I was, gave me an opportunity to come back and be a coordinator again, believed in what I wanted to do defensively, believed in me, sat me in his office and told me why Gannon was the right fit for me and why I needed to come there. And those players at Gannon, they talk all the time about thanking me for being there. I needed them as much as they needed me. They were unbelievable kids. They gave me the confidence to believe in what I was doing and got me out of a pretty dark time, to be honest with you. So I owe a lot to all them.
How much, we hear about how cerebral you are. How much of an analytics guy are you?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Hey, that makes me sound really dumb. I'm sorry. I study percentages. I study numbers. I want to know what I think they're going to do at certain times, but how do we stop what they do and let our players play fast? Sometimes if you get into that too much, it makes it seem like I want to make the perfect call. And I don't want people to say, oh my God, what a great call by Bryan Nardo. I want people to say, what a great play by Oklahoma State's defense. What a great play by, name it, player on our defense. It's not about me, it's about our players. So sometimes when you get into analytics, it's because you want to make the perfect call, and I don't want to make the perfect call. I want our players to be so prepared at how to stop things that they play really fast and look like unbelievable players that they are.
Mike, those lines, Colin Oliver is a guy that those of us who've watched the last 2 years are familiar with in one role. He's obviously in a different type of role. What makes him a good fit at linebacker in this defense?
How natural a football player he is. He sees things and does things without, he'll be the first to admit it, without knowing why he did it. He just naturally shows up there. And he's like, hey, coach, am I allowed to do that? And you just smile and say, yes, you're allowed to do that, I promise. He's like, okay, cool, this is what I saw. He's driven. He's driven to be elite. He's driven to be a perfectionist. He very seldom makes the same mistake twice. Phenomenal person, smart, comes in my office and wants to know why. I mean, it kind of marries onto the same thing about everyone else here. It's like, God, we have great players and great kids, great people.
A couple years ago, Mike would like to paint the picture of what Jim Knowles did, hunkered down in his office for a game week and come out, 10 hours later with a game plan. How do you prepare for a game on game day and game week? What do you do?
Game day is probably the worst day of the week for me because I know everything's done. It's out of my hands. I study. I watch film. I do a lot of my preparation on the front end. And I'm a big believer is if I get up here at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., my wife and boys don't know I'm gone. And if I'm up here till 11 o'clock at night, they'll miss me. So I try to get here and be a morning person and watch a lot of film and study formations, study why, what they're trying to do, build a plan. Once we get to game day, I heard somebody say this one time, and I can't remember who it was, and forgive me for if I'm quoting somebody that I can't give them credit for it, but they talked about practice is class, right? If you hear a good teacher, a teacher doesn't say a word during a test. So I'm very nervous going up to a game because there's nothing I can do to affect the outcome. During the game, I'm very calm because the players have already done their preparation. You don't yell at somebody when they're taking a test. You let them go play. You try to guide them if they ask a question, but I don't get overly animated. I try to calm down at least. My wife may tell me differently, but I just believe in letting the kids play. And you teach during practice, try to get them better, and let them go out on Saturday and believe in the test.
Coach, in the past 3 months, just how life-changing has this all been for you?
It has been very life-changing in the sense of what it means for my family and what it means for my boys in our future. Outside of that, it's been the exact same job that I've always done, which has been great. And I thought it would be something different, and it really hasn't. You come in and once you get to know the kids and you get past the fact that this was actually pretty funny because the defensive ends came over for dinner on Thursday night, and my boy loves when our players come over. So the safeties came over on Thursday, the linebackers came over on Tuesday, and then the DNs came over on Thursday. And my boy looked at my wife, and he didn't hear me. My wife goes, Dad, they're big. So once you get past how big they are, you realize they're still 18 to 23-year-old kids. And coaching is coaching, and football is football, and kids just want to know you care about them. They just want to know relationship-wise. So it's been life-changing in the fact of what it means for my family, but outside of that, it's been great because I still get to do what I love every day. Coaching football has been life-changing for me since the day I started doing it.
What were those expectations that you had that this didn't meet? Like you were saying, there was an intimidation factor there.
It wasn't so much intimidation. It was almost like PTSD from some negative experiences that I've had in the past. And to come here and see that it can still be a great environment and still have the kids that are the way they are. That's what it's been.
Coach, forgive me if this has already been asked. Came back from over there, but what's your favorite part about Stillwater and kind of what's been just, I guess, some of your best takeaways from the town?
The people.
Really?
Yep. The one thing I've learned throughout my life is it's not where you go, it's who you're with. And if you're in a great place and you have bad people, that place becomes miserable very quickly. And if you're in a place that has great people, it becomes an unbelievable place to be. So whether it's been in that facility, whether it's been at church, whether it's been out to dinner, whether it's been at the grocery store, or anyone that's seen my wife or myself, it's been a great place with great people.
And I'll kind of ask to follow up with, the town and what impresses you about that. What kind of impresses you? Someone may have already asked it, but who is impressing you just on your first glimpse of this spring defensive line, linebacker, secondary, all of them?
Every single person on our defense has impressed me because every single person is playing unbelievably hard and believing in what we're doing. Every single person.
Talking to people who've played for you in the past, talking to some of your family members, a phrase that keeps coming up is "it's cool to be you." Tell me the origin of that and what it means to you.
That was what my dad used to tell me when I was a kid. Still tells me. That's what I've told my players. You grow up and you go through things and you realize real quickly that people will always try to slot you where they think you should be. And the one thing we talked about as our family, or what my dad wanted to constantly get through, was it's cool to be you. I don't have to be anybody else to be great at what we do. And we tell our players, you don't have to do anything special to be elite. It's cool to be you. Who you are is good enough. So if you have to change who you are for someone to like you, you're not going to put yourself in a very good situation. So going through that and taking it into coaching, it's very easy for the guys. Like, you don't have to press to make a good play. You're good enough. You don't have to try to make a great play. Your talent is there. So big plays happen when perfect technique meets opportunity, not when you press it. So if you get them to understand it's cool to be me, I don't have to do anything special to be great, all of a sudden now they don't not only believe in what they're doing, they believe in who they are and how they do it.
You alluded a couple of different times to kind of the transition between Youngstown and Gannon, sort of vaguely. I'm not trying to be rude, but just talk about how important getting through that was for you and how it kind of set you up to actually be in this position now.
The biggest thing was it got me back to being a coordinator. It got me back to running my defense and being able to have a voice again and impacting kids. So that was the biggest transition, was to get me back to believing in myself and believing in what we could do.
How did you end up? How did Mike reach out and you guys get talking on getting you here?
He got my number from Coach Clements and reached out. Called me on a Wednesday.
And it was a pretty quick process, correct?
Pretty quick, about 10 days.